Hi, everybody. So, for this short lecture, we're going to be looking at two different kinds of identity, specifically claimed and attributed. So, we're going to start out with claimed identity. So, think about those words. You probably have an idea of what that means already before we even get into it, right? So, I want you to take a minute and just kind of think about this. How would you describe yourself? What are the important things that you see about who you are? A lot of you already wrote about this in the Who Am I paper. So just kind of like ruminate on that for a moment. And so when you do that, probably, a lot of the things that you've come up with are going to be some of what I'm about to talk about here. So this is for me when I ponder who I am. These are the different things that come to my mind. So first of all, I'm American. I'm from Baltimore. I'm of Irish descent. Gettysburgian, so I went to Gettysburg College, so as an alum. Chelsea supporters, is a Chelsea football or soccer team in England. That's how I spend my Saturday mornings. I'm a traveler. I like to get out and see as much of the world, as much of the country, as much of West Virginia as I possibly can. I'm an educator. I'm pale, so I'm very pasty. That's been a part of my life since I was a kid. I'm glow in the dark white, and so that's become an important part of who I am because it's something that's always been there. I'm a Bruce Springsteen fan, and I'm an NSYNC fan, right? So these are the things that are important to me when I would initially think about, okay, who am I? This is what comes up. And so here you can see kind of the different categories that each of these fall into. So we have nationality, we have location-based, we have ethnicity, memberships, hobby, worldview, profession, physical aspects, the things that you like, generational things, right? So like being an NSYNC fan very much puts me in the millennial bracket, right? So there's different things that kind of distinguish us, and for some of us they're important, for others they're not. But so this just kind of gives a good overview of all the different pieces that can come together to create our claimed identities. These are the things that we want to be known as or known for. So it's really anything that we choose to show about ourselves, right? So if I, on St. Patrick's Day, wear green, I'm choosing to show that I claim being Irish. And a lot of people claim being Irish on St. Patrick's Day, right? But still, on St. Patrick's Day, everybody's Irish, right? Like, that's even a thing that people say. So we talk about the demonstration of it. So there's a lot of the physical aspects of it, how we dress, how we do our makeup, how we do our hair, how we walk. But there's also things like accents. Sometimes people actually change their accents. And so I'm sure you guys have heard of code switching before. So that's a version of claimed identity and how you're choosing to claim different identities in different spaces through using that kind of communication tool that we have. So within claimed identity, we also have this concept of impression management. And so this is how we shape how other people are viewing or seeing our claimed identities, how they're kind of intaking what we're trying to put out for them. So there are 5 key impression management strategies that Jones and Pittman came up with. So I'm going to walk you through each of them kind of quickly here. So one is ingratiation. And so that's basically just trying to make yourself seem likable to other people. You're trying to get in with that group. So we talked about in groups and out groups previously. This kind of connects with that and trying to become part of that accepted piece. Intimidation, kind of taking an alternative tack there, is almost like threatening people into accepting what you want them to be seeing. So you're emphasizing potential danger in that sort of situation, danger in who you are. Self-promotion is really just playing up how you are competent, how you are effective, how you have the tools you need to succeed in a certain situation. Exemplification is emphasizing the morality, so trying to kind of pit your chosen identity or identities as the morally correct option, and so really playing up how they fit within whatever the bigger picture is that you're trying to work toward. And we also have supplication, and so that's emphasizing helplessness, right? So trying to situate it so that you need other people to come help you. And so a lot of these are really about shaping interactions with others, but also kind of drawing them into you more. So all of these have some level of interaction that's implied by just what they are, by their definition. And so as you get more people closer to you, they also are able to see more of the identity because they're actually interacting directly with you, whether it's through fear or through trying to help or whatever it is, they're closer to you. And so you're able to more easily get that identity that you're aiming to claim, aiming to put out there across to others so they accept it. So we all make facial expressions, right? This is a really key way that we can claim identities. And so these identities, like I've said before, can be kind of temporal, so they can last for only a certain period of time. So looking at this, you can see identities such as like fear or sadness or excitement or confusion or doubt. All of those can also be identities in the moment, right? So you can see here how they're kind of broken down, how they look different on different faces. But so even when we're interacting with people, having a conversation, we're portraying further identities through the expressions we make, through the way that we use our faces. And so you'll hear sometimes, we all know about Botox, right? So you'll hear sometimes people talk about like frozen faces and how they feel like they can't connect to somebody because there's no expression on the face anymore. And so that, again, is another form of identity, right? Like the lack of identity, almost the lack of expression, the lack of engagement in that conversation or that communication. So just another kind of layer to think about. So it's not just the clothes that we wear, it's not just how we do our makeup, but it's also the way our faces look. And so this is different in different cultures as well, right? There are other cultures where it's much more common to have kind of like a straight face all the time, where in Western culture and in US culture in particular, we tend to be very expressive, sometimes too expressive even with our faces. And so it means much, much more here, and it really does have a big role to play in that kind of transmission of identity between people. So I have a couple pictures here, and I want you to sit and think again, what is the identity that the person who lives in this room is trying to portray? So this might look similar to what my room looked like in 1998. It wasn't so much Justin Timberlake, but still, posters all over the place. So this identity that the person is portraying here is, probably they're a young teen. There's a guinea pig cage in there, so probably they like kind of pets, and maybe because it's a guinea pig and not like a dog, they're like a little quirky, right? And there's boy band posters everywhere, so you know that they're a pop music fan. You know that this person in particular has quite an affinity for Justin Timberlake. And so Justin Timberlake fandom can be an identity, and it certainly was in 1998, right? A lot of you know this, I'm sure. So there's definitely a lot coming through in this, and this is just from seeing one corner of a bedroom. So how about this one? A little bit more modern, right? So I've had students in the past say that this is millennial identity, kind of a lot of little things in there, but it's also kind of bland, and it kind of looks like a catalog, right? Like there's not a lot of real personal sentiment in it, but it's pretty and it's really clean. It looks like it's been staged. So it's somebody who's trying to portray that, that they're successful, they're an adult, they live in a clean space, they like order, but you don't see like personally made artwork, you don't see family pictures, so it's all stuff that probably was bought off of a shelf at like Home Goods or something. So there's not as much unique individual personality in there, especially if we would compare it to the craziness of the previous one where it's like somebody just dumped out their entire insides. This one's much more manicured, so it's giving a more formal impression. How about this one? So this is a dorm room, clearly, right? And so you can see that it's probably kind of maybe like a boho kind of student. So they have their fake plants in there to kind of get that natural vibe. It's all still very organized, right? Like they still have the pictures and the grids. They have the lights neatly hanging down from the ceiling. The bed's nicely made. The desk is pretty clean. But there's still more stuff, and it feels more personal than the previous one. So again, it's kind of a combination where you're seeing more personality there, but you're seeing still that same level of order, and still with that personality, like that bed, all of those pieces look like they probably came in a bag together, right? Like they didn't source them and create that kind of vibe on their own. It was probably a bag that they bought at like Urban Outfitters or something. But still, you can see the kind of impression that this person is trying to give by this little corner of their bedroom, right? They're down to earth, they're relaxed, they like their friends, but they like clean, ordered spaces as well. So just another place to see that we share our identities through the spaces that we're in. So I don't know if you guys can really see behind me, but I have bookshelves in my office that are full of history books, because I was a history major in undergrad, and I actually still, believe it or not, read them sometimes, but also lots and lots of DVD cases. You probably can't actually tell what those are from here, but it's actual hard physical copy DVDs, because I like to cling on to my old media. And so movie watching used to be a pretty important part of my identity. I used to like see every movie when it came out, all the new ones. There was a website, I can't remember what it was called back in the day, where you'd go and just rank all of your top movies, and people would be on there weekly updating their top movies, like top 100, and then justifying it. And so that used to be an important piece of my identity. Now it's not. I haven't seen a new movie in 5 years, and I have no desire to see a new movie anytime soon. So what was once very important now no longer is, but still like the vestiges of it hang around in my space. Okay. So now I'm moving on from claimed identity to attributed identity. So again, like, the word claimed, you probably knew what that already was going to mean. Probably the same with attributed. We know what that means, so we probably can put it together to figure out what attributed identity is. But just to be clear, attributed identity is something that somebody else gives to you. And so whether they're explicitly giving it to you or just in their head, they're deciding, okay, this is who that person is, it's still something that kind of connects between them and you about how they think about you. And so attributed identity can also be foundational or developed over time. So something that we all hear a lot about now with a foundational identity would be the sex assigned at birth, right? So you're born and you're a boy or you're a girl. That's an attributed identity. It's something that people have given you. Evolutional, over time, something, as you age, things that will come to you based on different environments that you're in, different experiences that you have. I'd say one for me with my family, when I got my PhD, I had some younger cousins who were like, oh, she thinks she's smart. And so I got that identity, where before I was the dumb kid in the backyard making mud pies until middle school, right? So, the way that they would think of me changed over time because I stayed in school longer. And so really important to this is the idea that attributed identity is socially constructed. So hopefully we all know about social constructivism, but it's basically just the idea that what's around us creates things. So not a lot exists inherently by itself. It's things that humans as social beings have created. So attributed identity is created based on social structures or social environments. So who attributes? All of these people: family, caretakers, friends, supervisors, random people on the street, and more, right? Like, when you feel like somebody is thinking you are something, whether you really are that thing or not, right? That's a little abstract to talk about, but I know that you get it, right? Just from being out in the world, you've noticed when you think that somebody is seeing you in a way that you wouldn't think to see yourself, or that they're maybe changing their behavior with you because they think that you are a certain type of person. So everybody attributes all the time. Some key concepts. So we had impression management before, now we have identity management. And so this is how you decide what information people can know about you. And so leaving the blanks in a lot of times is how people have the space to attribute identities that may not actually be true. But they can also, you can attribute identities by sharing information. So the more you share about yourself, somebody's going to attribute identities with you that might be more in line with who you actually believe yourself to be. And so then identity affirmation is the desire for consistency between how you see yourself and how somebody else sees you. And so this could be, if affirmation is really important to you, you're going to share more and more and more about yourself so people see you as you see you. So you want to go out into the world being the person and being accepted and being treated as the person that you actually think you are. So affirmation is really important to a lot of people. Some people don't care at all. Some people could not care less. They're just going to go out and do their thing, and if people like it, great. If they don't, fine. So the importance of identity management or identity affirmation varies a lot from person to person. That I would say most people probably have a fairly high devotion to identity affirmation and trying to make sure there's consistency between who they think they are and who others think they are. And so why does it matter what other people think about you? Besides all of the other like typical just, sitting in your room worrying about whether people are judging you or doubting you or whatever it might be, that kind of we all do at some point in life. We also have these kind of 3 micros that again are getting a lot more attention in the past maybe decade or so. So we have microaggression, which probably is the most familiar to everybody here, but it's when you have indirect discrimination against members of a marginalized group. We have micro assaults, which are when a person intentionally behaves in a discriminatory way, but they're not intending to be offensive. So that's the micro aspect. And then we have micro invalidation, which is basically when a comment kind of belittles an experience. Usually that's based on their background, their ethnic background, religious, racial, some sort of heritage there. And so these different pieces, when you're not being seen as the person you are, and so somebody's attributing different identities to you, these micros can really start to kind of break you down. They can be very internally harmful, but they can also be harmful in terms of the opportunities that you get out in the world. And so it's important that people have a strong understanding of what identities are and what they actually mean, that there is that kind of strong connection between who we think we are and who others see us as, to avoid these sorts of aggression, assault, invalidation. And so it is true that it shouldn't have to be on the person having the identity attributed to them to defend against this, but the reality is that that's the world that we live in a lot of times. And so you do have to take that responsibility there. And so sharing more, making a more clear identity, but also having classes like this where we understand and we talk about identity and try to kind of clear some of the stigma that exists around lots of them, and understanding what they mean, right? Because there's some pieces that could be really important to some people, but that aren't actually important at all to other people. But if we use those to create these sorts of discrimination, it has a much more impactful and long-lasting impact across the board. So when we're thinking about attributed identity, think about, does attributing a certain identity to somebody make you act differently toward them, right? Are you going to use language that's belittling unintentionally because you're uninformed about the identity that you think that they hold? So lots of those pieces, a lot of these micros, they happen without a lot of ill intent. It just kind of is because of the way it is. So we think about societal construction again. The way that our society has been constructed over the last 200 years has led to a lot of these microaggressions or assaults coming in without us being aware of them at all, because they just kind of go with the norm, what we've normally had. So it's important to kind of take a step back and think, okay, do I assign this to this identity and that to that identity? And how does that impact my behavior? So think about these. Think about, in particular, the micro assaults and micro invalidations, because they aren't talked about as much, but they are just as harmful as microaggression. So here I have a bunch of phrases, and all of them have an implied meaning of some sort. So I want you to kind of read through and sit and try to think about what you think that meaning might be. So pause the video now, read through. So something here like, no, where are you really from? What do you think that's actually saying? Right? Like, even just starting with the no, it's already being a little bit confrontational. So it's challenging the person that you're speaking to. But what does that where are you really from piece mean? Or this third from the bottom to a girl, math is hard, isn't it? Does that sentence come across differently if you're saying it to a guy or a girl? Are there different implications there? Maybe, maybe not. Some of these maybe will have generational differences too. Like I've said, I'm a millennial. We have a bunch of Gen X folks in the class. We also have a bunch of Gen Z. I think there are a couple other millennials in here too. And so we might all see these things differently based on the worlds that we've lived in, the kind of communication, the cultural, all of those different sorts of things that we've grown up in. These could be interpreted differently. So for somebody like this math is hard, that might seem like a completely blank, no meaning intended kind of question, like math is hard, I hate math, isn't math hard? But for another generation, it might be like, oh yeah, of course you're saying that to a girl because girls can't do math, right? And so for some people that wouldn't even come across their mind, but for others it could feel like a really personal insult. So I have the one perception of interpretation of what all of these implied meanings might actually be. So I'll throw these up on the screen. Again, pause, take a minute, and read through all of them. Try to think about where you think this meaning is coming from. Right? So if we go back to that, know where you're really from, it means you're not American, right? And so not being American in the US, that's othering, right? So it's something less than because you're not from here. The math one, just implying that women are less capable. Okay, so hopefully you can kind of see where this is coming from. I think the smartphone one is really interesting. Now, 5 years ago, there would have been people in a class without smartphones. Now it's increasingly rare. But so schools were more and more making smartphone usage be a part of a class. And still, what's the ethical line with that? Is it okay that we charge thousands of dollars for tuition and then still expect people to have a fancy cell phone on top of that? There's a lot to consider here. So in summary, we have claimed and attributed identity. Claimed is how we choose to present ourselves. We have impression management within that. And then attributed is how other people decide to view you. And it can be foundational or it can evolve over time.